released by this governor. Yet this governor can help a business violate the state's laws, bring it back into special session, and still not release money to help poor people in the state of Hawaii. To me, that's what being a Democrat means. We would have helped the poor people, not just business. See, so my father was right. What makes me a Democrat is when I have to choose, I'm going to step to the left.
For me, to answer the question, I'd like to take it back to 1954 and look at the reasons why the Democrats took control of the legislature for the first time in Hawaii's history. When that 54 election took place, and after we were in session, trying to improvise and put into effect the kind of things that we felt were very important, we looked at several things. We looked at education. Number one, we wanted a very fine educational system in this community because we believed that education was a great equalizer. Education made it possible for our people to be able to advance on the basis of their ability. Secondly, we wanted a community in which fairness prevailed. And at that time that 54 took place, the Big Five controlled the economy of this state, and you had to know the right people. And those of us who were Democrats took the position that we wanted an opportunity for every person to be able to compete with one another and to be able to rise on the basis of their ability and talent rather than who they knew. And so that idea of fairness and equality was very, very important. We felt that the kind of situation where the land was very important to us, and we wanted to be sure that there was a future for Hawaii's people by what we did with the land. The Land Use Commission, the land use laws that they passed in the in the 60s were very important for the future of Hawaii. Now there are other things that I think are very important. We can say, well, that was 1954. But I want you to know that I believe those same principles need to be looked at today. And there aren't many very differences than what it was in 54 and today. The same principles apply. I think, lastly, I would define a Democrat as a person who is a good steward, who wants to have a good life, and who will do everything he or she can to have a good life now, but never ever forgetting that there are those who are following us, and that stewardship means we must take the opportunity to enjoy what we have, but don't forget to pass it on in a condition that is better than that which we received it. To me, that's what it is to be a good Democrat.
Absolutely. Thank you, governors. And I wanted, each of you is sort of, has a reputation of your own and an interest that I'm going to sort of hone in on. So I wanted to ask you, Governor Ariyoshi, you started us out with asking us to create plans, asking us to be smart about the future of this state. You led us down the path where we now are talking about sustainability. Can you help us anticipate what is the future of sustainability for us?
During the time that I was governor, I never used the word sustainability because it means so many things to other people. And what I would like to do is talk about our preferred future. What kind of future do we want for ourselves and our children? And so the preferred future was the phrase, the terminology that we used. And that's what it's all about. If you don't look to the future, and you don't look at what kind of place you want Hawaii to be 20, 25 years from now, you're going to be doing little things now, and you may be doing the things that may be very opposite of what you want Hawaii to be in the future. I use the word stewardship, and that's what being a good steward is. You enjoy what you have now, but you also think about what you're going to pass on, and what the future is going to be for those who follow us. And sustainability, again, education important. I think it's very important for us to look at our land. How are we using our land? What kind of use are we making of it? Are we using it for our people's benefit? Or are we using it for other people's benefit? How about our children? How are they going to live in Hawaii if we go in the direction that we are in the use of our land and the development of housing for people in Hawaii? How are we going to take our water resources? And it's finite also. You can't keep on pumping it out and not be concerned about what's going to happen. And in 1983, we were very concerned about the water issues. And so we made some water allocation back in those days. And I feel very strongly that the water can be used as a way for us to determine how much growth we're going to have. And that's what it all comes down to. Growth, growth, growth means you're going to have to do all kinds of things, spend more money, education, everything else. So we have to, at some point, start thinking about our lands. We're surrounded by ocean. We can't go beyond the lands that extend out to the ocean. And so we have to think about how much of it we have, what kind of use we're going to make, how we develop it, what kind of development, when. And that, I think, becomes a very important in terms of what we want for our preferred future. Water is the same kind of thing. Well, I talked about in 1954 how the economic issues, the jobs, are controlled by the Big Five. You look at Hawaii today, and you look at what is happening. And as far as I'm concerned, I am prepared to have businesses come to Hawaii, new ones come to Hawaii. But I want to ask them, if they also are going to talk beyond making monies, are going to talk about whether or not the jobs that we create here will be created for Hawaii's people. And I'm not talking about the menial jobs. I'm talking about the upper management law, executive law that need to be shared with the people of Hawaii. And so there are all these issues that are very important in the creation of a preferred future. I want to be sure that all people have the opportunity to go out and enjoy our properties, our land. What for? What do we live in Hawaii? If we can't go out and enjoy our beaches and our parks, and are we trying to save some of these things? If you don't have that preferred future, if you don't think about the sustainability in the long term, you're going to do things like you take the Moana area, where they're going to take properties owned by the state, and they're going to turn over to develop and give them part of that land in return for some development. If that land is important for us, we ought to hang on to it, and we ought to develop so that our people, not just portions of it, that remains has to be turned over to developers, but all of the properties are left for the people of Hawaii. And that's how we got to begin to. And when you start thinking about those things, then you don't go along with the kind of thing about that happening in Magic Island. You know, I'm taking Pier 5 and 6 now, developing that for housing. Again, I think it's a lack of the question about the future of Hawaii. And so, each in your own way, you ask that question, what kind of place do you want Hawaii to be 25, 30 years from now? What kind of place do you want to leave Hawaii's people? What opportunities will Hawaii's people have to continue to live here in Hawaii if we don't change some of the direction? These are questions that each of you can ask and wonder about. Aloha.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Waihee, you know, you made your reputation with the work that you did in the Constitutional Convention in 1978, and you all created a whole revolution when you were, by the time you were done. There's a lot of talk now about another Constitutional Convention coming up in, 2010. Can you tell us, what do you think we can look forward to in a Constitutional Convention? What we should be concerned about? What we should be doing? This is a short question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in 1978, when I was in the Constitutional Convention, we developed a reputation, and then we had to try and get rid of it for the next 15 years. Hey, for Palaka power. the next year, I guess, we are going to vote on whether or not there'll be a constitutional convention here in the state of Hawaii. And I probably personally have a different opinion about that than most of my colleagues, because there are going to be many people, many good Democrats, who would not like to see a constitutional convention. And for some time, and for good reason. I mean, I can see people in the labor movement, for example, concerned about what the constitutional convention might mean if the delegates decided that they were going to review the collective bargaining laws in Hawaii. Those of us that are interested in social issues might be worried about the introduction of controversy on those social issues, gender, sex, and the rest, into a constitutional convention and into the public debate. And on a substantive level, those would be concerns for many of us. Those types of issues would raise concern for many of us who don't necessarily want to see anything changed. I mean, the Constitution is a fundamental document that sets out our values, and it ought to be very likely changed. Now, I think that there are going to be many people in the Democratic Party who are going to feel somewhat like that. And again, for good reason. Me, personally, I think the most important contribution that the Constitutional Convention could bring to Hawaii is not so much just a debate on the issues, these fundamental issues, but on the introduction of new blood into the political system. It's an opportunity for us to introduce a new generation of leaders to the public, and having them go out there and these newly elected delegates not only debate, but perhaps bring into issue many of the things that some of us have done in the past. I mean, every once in a while, you really ought to be tested. See, I'm like Governor Barrett. I don't think any program is sacred. I don't think any principle is sacred that you aren't willing to defend. And so I think we ought to be able to discuss any issue that we want. We ought to be reevaluating every issue that we want. I think I would feel differently about some of the things Bill Woods was been pushing. I feel differently about it today than I did in 1978. And that's probably healthy. And so I am in favor of a constitutional convention, because I think it's a chance for all of us to get back in there and to discuss things that we discussed in the past and reaffirm much of what we've had. At the same time, it's an opportunity to bring a lot of new blood into the political system. And it would be good. I mean, it's really something when people like Kirk Conwell would be called a young guy in the legislature. What happened to somebody that's 20-something years old running, And so anyway, that's my feeling. And gone, yes, go for it. Why not? Everybody ought to have a chance to blow the system up a little bit.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you. And then the last question, and to Governor Cayetano, and then we're going to open it up to an open mic for anybody to ask any questions you'd like. Governor Cayetano, you more than any other governor sort of took a laissez-faire position on the Democratic Party. Go, flourish, do what you need to do. So my question to you is, how do you think we're doing? And where do you think we're going? And just sort of, what do you think of us right now?
Let me tell you a story first about Governor Waihee. Governor Waihee, after the CONCON, I think it was, he was interested in becoming the head of legal aid. This is a story that, you talk about events which are important in people's lives. This is one that's important in his life. And I was a member of the Legal Aid Board. And what the selection boiled down between Governor Waihee and a guy named Mel Masuda, and I was from Mel Masuda. And I did everything I could to get Mel Masuda appointed to the Legal Aid Board. And he won. And this guy went on to become governor. So he owes me that. Otherwise, he'd be still heading legal aid right now. How has the Democratic Party done? You know, I want to be very frank with you, okay? Somebody said, oh. I mean, listen, I hardly come downtown. I kind of hide out in my home on the east side, you know, but I came today because I wanted to talk some straight talk with you folks. I think the party is in need of a real boost. You know, by all measures, the Republicans in the legislature should be irrelevant, given their numbers. And the Democrats should be able to do almost anything they wanted, given their numbers. But this is not happening, and it's not happening because I think some people, Democrats in the legislature, have kind of forgotten what they get elected for. And you know, I know there's some here, you know, but you guys are not included in this group, okay? I just told Marcus Oshiro, way to go, boy, you took on the governor on the Super Ferry, so Marcus, good job. Yeah. But all the kind of things are important. What is happening to the legislature? When I was in office, a bill came to me that I vetoed, and the bill was to raise the minimum wage, which is a democratic program that we all believe in, maybe almost all of us. But attached to it was a 25% tax credit for the hotels. Since when do Democrats do things like that? And I vetoed the bill. And they knew I was going to veto the bill, but they wanted that 25% tax credit for the hotels, as if the hotels needed a tax break, you know? And they attached it to something that was important to poor working people. Now, the guys who are responsible for doing that, you folks should help shape up or help ship them out and replace them with Democrats who understand what elective office is all about. I've always believed, and one reason I think that I've been able to be pretty independent in my thoughts or my actions about politics is that it's a great privilege to be chosen as a member of the legislature, one of 76, out of a population of 1.2 million people. If you don't feel that you are part of this exclusive privilege that your fellow citizens have given you, then you shouldn't be in there, and you should act accordingly to serve the public. No politician should go into office thinking that he's going to live forever. When I started in 1974, one of the things that I realized was that this is going to end one day. And while I'm in it, I'm going to do everything that I think should be done and say everything that I think should be said. That's not happening today, okay? And, you know, the leadership, as far as I'm concerned, in the legislature is weak right now. Go ahead and run back and tell them that because I told them myself. So, Governor Waihee has a good idea. Maybe we need the Concon to get new blood, to get new people running for public office, people who understand what it's all about. And I think that's what the Democratic Party should be doing, because, you know, as it was Thomas Jefferson said that if we need a revolution every 20 years or something like that. Well, you know, maybe we need change, democratic change, as often as that. Thank you.
I want to demonstrate to you what it means to be a Democrat by disagreeing with some of the things that have been said here over the street. You see, I feel that our Constitution is a guide to our government. It sets forth the basic principles that we think are important in Hawaii. I don't believe the Constitution should be used as a place to take issues and win issues. Because the issues that the position you take on issues can change. It may be good now, but it may not be good for us 10, 7, 8 years from now. We may want to change that. And you put it in the Constitution, if you're not going to be able to change it, then it's going to be there for a long time. And so I really believe that we got to separate the things that you put in the Constitution from those that you don't. And as far as I'm concerned, the Constitution should be a principal expression of what we are, our people, and basic guides to how we get things done and do things about the judiciary, about the executive branch, and about the legislature. Now, it's very hard on some of the legislators' position they took. What I would like to do is not have legislators have them take positions that we want them to take. I want them to exercise their best judgment, give us their best shot. You know, in the past, we have criticized the legislators because they have not gone along with some of the party platforms. But just think for a moment, a party platform we meet for a weekend, and instead of talking about basic principles of the party, we put in very specific positions, and we get them in there, those who want to get them in there, and we expect the legislature to take those party platform measures and create laws out of them. I have felt very strongly that no matter what position I take, no matter what I want the process to work. I want them to take it to public hearings. I want to have them listen to people who give testimony, and then decide what it is that they feel in best interest. And I feel also very strongly that when something comes up like that, you're not going to get every person agreeing. And the fact that you disagree should not be a basis for criticizing that person as having some special interest, anything like that. I think we have to mature to the point where we can say, here's the problem. Let's see what we can do with the solution and do the very best that we can. And then we're going to have differences. People are not going to agree 100% of the time. But we don't expect every person to agree 100% of the time. That's what this party is so good about. We're a big party. We encourage difference of thought and opinion. We make it possible for people to speak up, and at the end, we can shake hands and say, oh, you and I don't see eye to eye on this problem. But that's what life is all about. Even in your own family, between husband and wife, children, and so forth, relatives, you don't see every problem in the same kind of way. You have different opinion. And that's what ought to happen in the legislature also. We should not expect compliance with a particular train of thought. And to me, that becomes very dangerous. And so I used to send bills to the legislature, and I used to tell them, I do not have the public hearing process opportunity. You take it to public hearing, and after you go to public hearing, you listen to the people who come in and give you advice or tell you different positions you have to take, and then you make up your best decision, the best decision that you can make. That's what I think is very healthy for us, and that's what I think we've got to strive for, to have Democrats talking like that.
Thank you. The governors have pointed out to me that I've neglected, and just because they've acknowledged some of the legislators, that I've neglected to acknowledge the legislators. Let me take the time at this moment to do so, and that is to acknowledge the presence of the Majority Leader, Representative Kirk Caldwell. The House Finance Committee Chair, Marcus Oshiro. House Finance Vice Chair, Marilyn Lee. And of course, Tom Brower, where I represented him. I wanted to acknowledge also that Representative Bellotti was here earlier but had to leave, and wanted again to thank the members of the House for all the assistance that you are providing us with selling chicken tickets. Thank you very much for that. the portion that is open mic. Mr. Port.
Originally, I was going to ask who you thought would be the best nominee for President of the United States. I'm not going to ask that. I'm going to have a very substantive question. It has to do with Cayetano. As you view what happened from the beginning to where we are now, my recollection is that it was intended that the people would pay for the infrastructure in order that working people would be able to reside in that area, for example, those who work in the hotel industry and so forth. So my question is, do you think that what has happened and what is happening with Cayetano is what your dream for that area was?
Whichever wishes to answer.
And I was responsible for creating the Community Development Authority that that is in charge of Cayetano now. And the reason for creating that Community Development Authority was the idea of having new planning in an old area, a new community in an old area, and taking some of the roads and the infrastructure that were not well maintained to be able to create a nice setting. Our hope was that we would be able to keep some of the people who were there, that they would continue to remain in business. What has been happening now, I feel very strongly about. We are building all those high rises out there, very expensive ones, mostly not for Hawaii's resident, mostly for people who want to flip it over, buy, and then they hope they can make a lot of money. And I don't think any of our land should be used for that kind of purpose. And I think that we ought to look really at whether or not we provide him water to make that kind of thing possible. And so I believe that there are ways in which we can control that, and it's the issuance of water licenses to permits to draw water. I believe that we should look very carefully at what kind of use we make of those properties, because I think that it's not being used for Hawaii's purpose. Tax-wise, makes a lot, they pay a lot of taxes. But that's not what we want to see happen. And what we want to see happen is the use of the properties out there that will be of value to Hawaii's people.
Thank you. I'm going to go first to Melissa Pavlicek, then to Tony Gill. Melissa. Oh, Governor, you want to...
Actually, I wanted to criticize the legislature.
Oh, there you go.
Absolutely,
Governor.
No, I was just saying, to me, for Cayetano, Richard, my vision of Cayetano was that we ought to open it up to as many people as possible. And that's why we started the park. We also brought down the, moderate housing into Cayetano and the rest. And so, is my vision being achieved there? It depends what else you're comparing it to. Because as long as we keep going, I never believed that we had the only plan that would work. But we had the right principles for Cayetano, just like Governor Ariyoshi said. What I didn't agree with was the stuff that this administration, maybe I'll go back, this is how I backdoored and criticized the legislature. My reputation is to build consensus and do all of that stuff. But I think there's a time to be partisan. And what I think the Democratic Party needs to be in Hawaii right now is more partisan. We need to constantly contrast ourselves within the lingo, and it's not being done. And the plan that she put out to Cayetano, to me, was a betrayal of the vision of many people who had worked down there to build the kind of central core to Honolulu that we ought to have. It's the first place that tourists come to. It's a place where our people, if you go to, let me back up. You go to Baltimore, you go to all of these cities, there's a place in the center of the city that defines the soul of the city. You go into New York City, and that's Central Park. You go into Baltimore, it's the harbor. Cayetano is to define the soul of Honolulu. And dumping a lot of rich people in high rises is not the soul At least it's not my soul in the definition of Honolulu in Hawaii. And so that's what the Republicans want to do. Democrats ought to get back to pointing that out and saying, look, we want a place that brings access to for our people. We're spending public money. There ought to be public activity. This is ought to be a place where this cross-section of the community lives. So we ought to have housing down there that is more than just for rich people, and get it back and be in an exciting, vibrant place. You ought to be able to walk from, this is what my feeling was, the day that Kaka'ako filled my vision was when I could walk from Aloha Tawa to Waikiki, all along the front of the waterfront of Honolulu. That's not in the Republicans' plans. So I thought we were having a Democratic meeting today with a Democratic convention, so I want to be partisan. So every time you don't hear me talk about my philosophy about anything, you're going to have me contrasting it with the junk that's going on now. And that's what well anyway, that's what I think.
When I took office and we looked at Kaka'ako, we looked at what John Waihee did and George Ariyoshi before him. And at the time, what we set in place some guidelines, and that is all the housing would be on the Mauka side of Ala Moana Boulevard. Condominiums, offices, all on that side. And on the Makai side, the water side, it would be open. One time we had I'd envisioned an aquarium there. Now, one of the qualifying factors is that somebody got to pay for this, and we found that unless you have some rent-paying tenants, it's very difficult to maintain, because one of the problems with Kaka'ako is that the state puts in millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in the infrastructure, and the county collects the real property taxes, and that's that's a little imbalance there. We should be getting some of that to pay for the infrastructure. So I agree with Governors Waihee and Ariyoshi. It shouldn't be housing there. What they had envisioned, if I recall, and I actually came out against it, was condominiums right on the waterfront over there by Fisherman's Wharf. That is not what we envisioned. You can build condominiums anywhere. But that is about the last place in urban Honolulu where the state has land which can be used for open space, recreational purposes. So I'm speaking to the choir with these two guys here, but I wish I had more time. I want to answer the governor on this thing about the legislators, but I don't. So.
Let me go first to Melissa Pavlicek, then to Tony Gill, Arvid, and Marcia.
I'm a volunteer with the Democratic Party Women's Caucus, and Governor Waihee, you were known for nominating the most women to the judiciary, and I wondered if you were trying to make it more reflective of our population, and many of those judges have not been retained or have now retired, and I wondered what the Women's Caucus could do to see the judiciary more reflective of the population.
Yeah, I was also doing it to get reelected, but this. Wait. This is a serious meeting. No, I think that we need to. Well, first of all, I think there's a really good book out right now. You can get it from the public library. All Democratic strategists ought to read it, and it said something about if we did what they wanted, and it's about women and women's attitudes in this country actually, and about how important they actually are. And so I'm kidding, but I'm not, because I'm again talking to the Democratic Party. Okay. And on one level, so I'm giving you some practical advice. There is one of the most important growing interest groups in America and the state of Hawaii are the women, who share certain common interests and elements. And I don't think that people pay enough attention to that. So now I'm speaking as a political strategist. I think it behooves the Democratic Party to understand their constituency, number one. And number two, probably more importantly, as a matter of principle, and why I made some of the appointments I made, is that there's a great deal of talent that was being out there, that was being untapped. As to what you can do about making this governor appoint more women, you know, I don't know what you can do with this governor, frankly. But, I think that one thing that was persuasive to me was the fact that the Women's Caucus actually brought